Welcome back to Data Center News Asia. It's the end of April. I missed you in Singapore last week, James. You were in London with the DC Bike gang at the Legion of Doom headquarters.
Yes, correct. Managing off-site in London. Always nice to get over, see everyone.
Lovely. Glad you got to catch up with Ed as well. Did he have any comments about the alleged mustard smear on his chin during our PTC interview?
I didn't actually raise it with him, but he was happy with the content. So if you haven't already checked it out, do check out the episode with Ed
He didn't.
Scott.
It's a good backstory. It's a good backstory. All right, we've got some news to get into. Just very quickly, I have to plug that I'm doing my own Europe trip over the next couple of weeks. If anyone is going to be at DCD South Europe in Madrid, and then later in May, there is the Tech Capitals International Finance Forum, where Yao is generously letting me present the Asia Pacific Award, like I'm like an ugly version of those women they have in Vegas who give the trophies out. So it'd be great.
Yeah, everyone's got their kinks.
There's a target audience for everything if you think hard enough. Let's start with Amazon, shall we? Target audience for this one is sustainability advocacy. So this is the news that they have inked 9 PPAs across Australia, totaling 430 megawatts of power, which I do have to, as always, caveat is the renewable peak load of those assets versus the data center peak load. But this is a large amount of power and lots of different contracts here.
Yeah, really interesting. So looking just through the list of assets, we've got a wind farm, 3 utility scale solar and battery hybrids, 4 distributed solar battery projects, and a battery energy storage system, or a BESS. This particular one, that was already tied to one of the announcements I think they made last year. But yeah, good to see quite a variety of different projects coming online.
Yeah, absolutely. As said before, there's always the ongoing debate, and we're seeing this obviously erupting in the US, and Australia is managing it hopefully in a slightly more grown up way between data center builds. And obviously, one of the questions is it a good thing when companies like Amazon and Google and Microsoft hoover up all the renewable power? On the other hand, there's obviously the benefit of your favorite word, additionality, which is the marketplace is created by these kind of moves. Without companies like Amazon doing this, the question mark remains, would governments be making any progress at all on renewables? So it's a double-edged sword. It's a hotly debated topic.
Yeah, there's an interesting piece. So Amazon, I can't remember the individual, but I'm sure we can find it and link it. One of the key individuals be at the Amazon team basically just posted this news, and then Craig Scroggy of NextDC, he reposted it, but he put a bit of context, Australian context, to it as well, basically saying, yeah, these projects won't happen if big off-takers like data centers don't get involved. And also goes on to highlight, or someone else certainly highlighted, that things like transmission costs for these large-scale projects, where they are tied to data centers, are borne by the data centers. So yeah, like I said, I do believe that this is creating additionality. And to your point, I think where data center projects not tied to this, then yeah, a lot of this would just never get built.
So now, sticking with the number 430 and Amazon, but skipping across to India, where the next few stories are all set. AWS have planned a 430 million US dollar, $429.8 million in Navi Mumbai, which this is relative to the scale of things, particularly what we know that AWS are taking down in Amazon. This is not the biggest of facilities. This is, I'm guessing here, somewhere in the 50 to 60 megawatt range for that kind of price.
Yeah, like India is slightly cheaper to develop than other markets. The press release, or the article I'm reading, says it's going to have a capacity of 473 megawatts, which I think is a typo. Maybe 47.3. That would be more consistent. It's in Taloja. It's actually a nice site. Myself and Sarvesh saw it on a recent trip to India, and he may have actually even seen it again more recently. But they've got a ton of capacity coming up in and around Mumbai and extending it into Navi Mumbai.
Yeah, remember the Mumbai region only launched in 2016, so this was just before I actually made my soiree into the industry. And since then, Amazon has spent $3.7 billion in the years leading up to 2022. And then subsequently from that, including the Hyderabad region, another $7 billion have been spent in India, with more committed coming up. So India really is a key battleground between the cloud and AI compute players, as well as a fantastic market opportunity for those who have been able to get their foothold.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
One of those players who have got their foothold is Singapore's own, but of course, plenty of experience in India, Princeton Digital Group, PDG. So these guys, PDG, have broken ground on their latest Mumbai data center. This is more the sort of scale we're used to now in India. This is 120 megawatts. And yeah, this is MU2.
Yeah, I think we kind of reported on the groundbreaking ceremony a couple of month ago. But yeah, this is MU2, which is obviously their second development across Mumbai, 120 megawatts, 120 megawatts. So brings, a couple of hundred, I think 200 or so megawatts now across Mumbai, with an additional 70 odd in Chennai as well. And then they've recently also acquired a 90-ish megawatt size plot for a campus in Hyderabad as well. So, yeah, soon have pipeline of 500-ish megawatts there.
Yeah, pretty substantial. PDG not always the loudest voice in the room when it comes to their marketing and shouting about themselves, but I'd have to have them ranked top 5, maybe top 6 operators across Asia Pacific now. They've got operations in every key country: Singapore, Japan, India, China, Indonesia, Malaysia, South Korea, and they've listed Australia now on the website, and we know they've been sniffing around there. This is obviously originally backed by Warburg Pincus, still backed by Warburg Pincus, but they've added capital in from Ontario Teachers, Mubadala, and Stonepeak. So these guys are really flying now.
Yeah. As you mentioned, they've got projects or certainly ambitions in all the key markets across APAC, and getting quite a lot of leasing and development done. So congrats to them.
Yep. Interesting story from India. So we've got 2 more from India here. And this one is Iron Mountain. This is topping out ceremony for their Chennai data center. Bigger one by their standards. So this is 23.2 megawatts. Iron Mountain's portfolio comes from the acquisition and inheritance of the WebWorks portfolio, which is a number of much smaller data centers dotted across the main Indian markets.
Yeah, so this is probably their first hyperscale focused asset, or certainly the most advanced one at this stage. So this is a campus which will be 42 or 43 megawatts once fully built out. This is the first of 2 buildings on this. So this is 23 megawatts, which is coming online. Yeah, as you mentioned, WebWorks probably more of a retail / wholesale player, but Iron Mountain across other markets, Europe, States, etc., has been developing sites aimed at more hyperscale. And yeah, like I said, this is the first of one of those projects in India.
Yeah. The other story we had from India was from PI, that's the Greek pie, not the pastry pie. Data centers developing a 23 megawatt data center in Mumbai. Still not quite sure why everything comes out in these sort of very uniform numbers. I'm guessing it's going to be 23.2 as well. And it must be something to do with the design of the data halls or specific. Yeah, I think we need to get one of the engineers on the show to talk us through why some of these parallels happen. Different markets, different sizes, different configurations. But yeah, not a site I'm overly familiar with here. This one, 23 megawatts in Mumbai.
Yeah, this is a smaller facility, probably again aimed at that retail / wholesale section, which is still relatively small in India. Like I think a lot of the development in the last couple of years has been as a result of AWS, Microsoft taking down significant chunks. But I think the enterprise and wholesale market is still in its infancy, I guess, when you would compare it to Japan or an Australia or Singapore. Pi data centers, they offer more of this solution. So this is going to be 23 in total. The first phase, which I'm guessing is a data hall, is going to be 3 megawatts and coming online in about 3 months' time.
Another topping out ceremony from what would be traditionally an enterprise player, but this is Singtel's Nxera and Telecom Malaysia, which is the JV in Malaysia is TM Nxera. And this is a topping out ceremony for their Johor facility, which is 64 megawatts, which is pretty chunky, but about what we come to expect these days in Johor.
Yeah, so this is the first phase, 64 megawatts, as you mentioned, of what could potentially be 280 megawatt campus. So this is only, 20 odd % of what could eventually be built on this site. Yeah, progressing pretty well. Like it was less than 2 years ago that the plans for this site were unveiled, and we all know that the build times in Johor are shorter and amongst the shortest, in the region, but globally. But they're making good progress here on what will be a pretty monster site once it's all up.
Yeah, this will be the new jewel in the KKR Singtel crown in Asia Pacific. Obviously, we reported extensively on the STT buyout takeover. Still no word yet on all these various TM former Digico assets, STT, what the naming is going to be and how the platform will come together. But yeah, certainly some big component parts to it.
Yeah, absolutely. And KKR have, again, we reported a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, even at this stage, that they had taken 20% share in Singtel's business. Then, of course, the two of them went together to buy ST.
Another one in Malaysia. This is from a company I have not heard of in a town I've not been to. This is Preva developing a 10 megawatt data center in Perak, which is the
Yes.
northwest peninsula.
Yeah, this is an interesting one because, it's not Cyberjaya, it's not Johor. And again, I've never been to Perak either, or even heard of it, to be honest, aside from this story. But this is interesting because I think what's interesting about this, first of all, it's 10 megawatts. I think it's scalable to 25. It's not clear from their website. I think it's phased, and I think initial stage is 10 up to 25. That's not what's interesting, though. What's interesting is they have announced a contract with the Malaysia subsidiary of China's Inspur Cloud, which, based on my understanding, Inspur will basically lease out capacity via their servers and almost be a bit of a reseller for companies who want AI or whatever else you might want in that part of the world. So interesting.
Yeah, they've phrased it that the latter, i.e. Inspur, will be engineering, procuring, constructing, commissioning the data center, whether the Prevasia is the developer of the core and shell, and then this will be almost like it's operate, but this is like almost an Inspur cloud self-build of sorts. Remains to be seen exactly how that will shape out, but always interesting when you get new cloud players, whether or not they are just using their own workloads from China, or whether this is a product and service offering that will become open to Malaysia remains to be seen. And other interesting one this week, I've used the word interesting too many times, is there's a Korean data center being built underwater. The photos look a bit different to the ones that we saw for the Microsoft Nautilus project, which has been shelved. There's another one of these going off in the US. Floating or subsea water data centers are back, it seems.
Yeah, so the city of Ulsan in South Korea has announced plans to construct a carbon zero underwater data center with Korea Institute of Ocean Science and Technology. If you look at the picture, it looks like they're building a Bond layer-esque style underwater base and what looks like quite beautiful water actually with the coral, but I'm sure that is not the case. But anyway, yeah, being built in Ulsan, which we've reported on actually a couple of times in the last 6 or so months. I think AWS got the site coming up there, but yeah, it doesn't really talk about what else is going to happen. But
yeah, definitely got Spy Who Loved Me vibes going on with the way they designed that one on the pictures. We are coming up to the end of our 15 minutes, but we do have time to quickly mention GDS doing something in China with some kind of biodiesel. This is the HVO that we've talked about in the past, the high hydrogenated, hydro-treated vegetable oil. And yeah, I've seen this in a couple of different data centers. It's sort of a backup fuel that you can use that is more sustainably produced than diesel. But yeah, backup fuel. There you go.
yeah, so it's via a company called Eco Ceres, maybe is how you say it, Eco and then CERES. Yeah, but basically by turning used cooking oil into renewable backup power for GDS, we're putting the circular economy concept into practice. So yeah, it's a replacement for diesel fuel in its generators. So yeah, let's see how this goes because there are some solutions like this out there. I'm not sure how widely available they are, but there's a couple of actually press releases, a couple of examples. HVO deployments include AWS in Sweden and Vantage in Wales and Stack in Norway. So most of these are in Northern Europe at the moment. So yeah, let's see how this goes.
There was a good debate on this last year at DCD Bali, which was about whether this is a good use for that quite rare green fuel in the supply chain. And we will be at DCD Bali as our next event partnership. So there we go, quick plug, and we're out. Thank you.
Yes, thanks everyone.